Hi, and welcome to Smart ICO Investor AMA with Cool Cousins. I'm Samuel McCullough, and I'm going to be joined today by Itamar and Gil from the team. We sat down for about 40 minutes. We had a discussion about their ICO, about the token sale, about the company that they've built from nothing. It was a really great interview. I had a chance to meet with these guys in Miami during the conference there. We had a few meetings and really enjoyed the team. Really like what they're doing. Check out their app. It's on the iTunes store right now. I've been using it. I'm gonna apply to be a cousin at some point. But let's get into it, and I hope you enjoy it. If you do, make sure you subscribe and also like. Let's start out. You guys are cool cousins. Uh, how about you guys talk about what you're doing with the project, kind of explain it, and then also talk about yourselves and how you got here to today.
So Gil and I actually know each other for the past decade. Gil has been an officer and a developer for the Israeli intelligence units, commanded hundreds of developers from any kind of field. I did my bachelor's degree before I was 18 and was able to work in a lot of companies. I was the first VP of a company called Mindspace. It's the biggest competitor for WeWork as a co-working space. I managed a designing firm for a couple of years. And about 2.5 years ago, a few of us got together, 5 people, Gil, myself, and 3 other co-founders who are a bit more older than us. Nadav, Itai, and Shachar. They're from each one of them is head of design, one is head of marketing, and the other is CEO. And we decided to basically create a product that tailors our needs because we were avid travelers, and wherever we would go, we saw that we couldn't plan and experience a city through a local's perspective. We were getting caught up in the top 10 best lists of TripAdvisor, or shady recommendations off of Yelp, or weird places off of Foursquare. We couldn't get, to plan and really experience a city through a local perspective. So we wanted to have, but on the other side of that, whenever we had a friend in a town we were visiting, we knew we had, great recommendations ahead of us because we trusted that person, and he knew what we're up to, and he knew what we need to go, and what we need to visit in terms of our own personas and our own preferences. So we wanted to create a platform where you can find a friend in every city, and that's kind of how we got to name Cool Cousin, and that's how we created our platform. So 2 years ago, we decided to raise money from a VC that's actually a 1.5 years ago, called Elevator Fund. And that helped us create our community around the world. Now we're about 75 cities with about 1,000 locals. Each one of those locals come from different backgrounds. So in New York, we got like 70 of these cousins. Our cool cousin is the local recommender. In New York, you have designers and chefs and entrepreneurs, and you have the editor of Vice, and you have the VP of BuzzFeed, and really cool people. And each of them is from a different age, different lifestyle, different ethnicity. And each one of those cousins create their map to the city. You can also message that person and ask them further questions, whether it's before your trip, during your trip. And the idea is you have someone on the ground you can trust to ask questions and rely on his recommendations. And I traveled with Cool Cousin in many cities around the world. And I can tell you that's a phenomenal experience having a local perspective. So right here in San Francisco, we went to Chinatown, but we got this really cool dim sum place that we wouldn't have, figured out unless we got someone to tell us, listen, it's a tiny hole in the wall, but you got to go there.
Yeah.
And then you have to go to a 15-minute reflexology session, do a foot massage. So that kind of recommendation really saves you from those tourist traps and those kind of like general places that doesn't make a city unique in any way. And Gil, our CTO over here, built in the last 2 years. You want to tell them about the platforms that we've been developing?
All right. So we have many different products. We have our cousins back office, which is where they go and input their map and get all the data enriched with all the different APIs. We have an iOS application, fully native, very slick, that we're very proud of. That has been, it's around version 70 or 75. So we're doing plenty of product iterations, making it ever better for every version. We have a web application that's fully responsive and progressive web application with offline support for most of the features. Also very slick, very responsive, uses the latest technologies in terms of how web apps are built today. We have many other systems like the chat system, which helps filter out, profanities and spammy messages and all those sort of things. Every network.
Also the cousin side.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. Like the cousin map input system. That's really where it's like the gateway to the experience of being a cousin. This is where you tell us about yourself. This is where you tell us what are your favorite spots in the city and all your recommendations, quick fire questions, tags. So this is how the cousin will tell the world and us about himself. And it's also a quite challenging system because it needs to be fun and it needs to happen fast. And we've made a long way since cousins were writing these doc files with 60 pages with all the recommendations, and then we manually added them to the database.
Yeah, we started basically doing the product as a very early MVP in Tel Aviv, in the city we're from. I was actually the first cousin, and we built our system on Google Docs, and then we grew from that, from Gil being the CTO and only developer. Now Gil manages a team of almost 10 developers in Tel Aviv. But that brings us up to speed to like October, before we launched our model for tokenization. And then, Gil has been an advocate in blockchain for a long time, and he kind of inspired us to move into that space and truly bring Cool Cousin into a decentralized system. So then we decided to tokenize in order to facilitate the free exchange of products and services between our locals, our Cool Cousins, and our travelers, to enable them to actually interact and create a payment system where there are no intermediaries, and our utility token enables the travelers to compensate the locals for their hard-earned work. And basically, our Cool Cousins can now monetize their hard-earned city knowledge. So let's say, I've been living in Tel Aviv all my life, and I know the city, like the palm of my hand, and I write these great recommendations, and I also help travelers get familiarized with the city, and I also help them book their restaurant or Airbnb. So now I'll be able to accept CUZ, C-U-Z token, as a form of payment. You want to tell them a bit about our technology for the smart contracts?
Before we jump into the technology, let's talk about the cousins a bit more. Now, what does it actually take to become a cousin? And you guys have a huge backlog, don't you?
Yeah. So right now we've launched about 1,000 cousins, and we have like 6,500 in the pipeline, and we don't accept everyone. So people in the beginning, I actually traveled to London and pitched one by one to people before the app was live and told them, listen, we're developing Cool Cousin to be the place where travelers can find really great locals that they can get their map off. And then I would recruit them one by one, and I had, I would get 90% of the people I meet would sign up to be a cousin. But soon after we launched, thousands of applications started pouring onto us. So now people apply at the site. It's become.coolcousin.com, and they have a very simple process where they tell us a bit about themselves. They log in with their Facebook. They pick their most favorite place in that city. So we learn, okay, they picked this coffee place, or they picked that tiny art museum, and we learn a bit about them. And then they go through our application system, and then they get access to their account. We have a special account system, as Gil said, the cousin side for our cousins, and they have to build a map that is about 25 minimum to 50 maximum spots, and they fill out an interview, and it takes about 3 hours on average to complete it. So 3 hours is the commitment that the cousin gives us in terms of writing the content and building the map. Sometimes it takes 2.5 hours, sometimes 4, but roughly on average 3.5 hours. And then our content team reviews it, make sure everything fits well, make sure everything hits our standard, and our community management team books their shoot. So in every city we operate, we have a professional photographer in place working with us. These are usually young photographers who are interested in what we do. We also have this great system where we onboard photographers and create a very high standard of photo shoots. You can check out, photo shoots from Rio de Janeiro and Barcelona and New York and London and Paris and Singapore, and they will all have a very, a compelling visual style. So we make sure that if a cousin even is not satisfied with his shoots, we do a reshoot. So we make sure that everyone loves their shoots because they are the foundation of our profile, of our cousin's profile. So after we do a shoot, we build a profile and we instantly release it. So we launch a new city every 4 days, and we launch like 150 cousins on average a month. But the reason we're now tokenizing is to enable even faster growth. So 1 year ago, we were like 100 cousins. Now we're like 1,000. And a year from now, I want to be 15,000 cousins. So we're very ambitious with our growth plan, but we really believe it's possible. We've been able to, keep on the growth, and in that sense, we're trying to minimize the work for the cousins. So if Gil said at the beginning we used to do it on Google Docs that would take like 12 hours, now we really simplify the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what is coming back? Let's come back to the technology then. So after the cousin gets applied and it gets accepted onto the platform. Once blockchain technology comes around, how does that fit into the current system?
We hope to achieve two things using blockchain technology. The first of which is to totally decentralize the community. So we have one ecosystem that's comprised of two entities, our company and our community. Now, the community should be completely decentralized for two reasons. The first of which is to remain unbiased. So these guys, usually when companies get their dirty hands into the content, it's being biased. It's being enriched with all sorts of ads and things that aren't our ads but don't look like ads. And it's very important for us to remain authentic and remain local and remain real and true to the actual locals who make the city, because this is our job. So in order to never have the dilemma and also to allow us to scale at a much faster rate, we're going to allow the cousins to be self-governing. So they will have voting rights for local issues, and they will have voting rights for global issues, and for issues where only the most trusted of cousins need to be involved. And we'll have the board of representatives, which is a group comprised of the top 20% most active cousins, who have the most to lose and the most to gain. So they're our trusted party for the more sensitive decisions. And by allowing them to govern themselves, we will remain unbiased and authentic forever. And our scaling it will reduce overhead and allow us to scale in a manner that's both more efficient, time efficient, money efficient, but also more local, more authentic. Now, the second reason for us to leverage blockchain technology is to facilitate the rewarding engine. Our rewarding engine allows us to incentivize people for doing things that benefit everyone, but not anyone in particular. So no one will pay for these things because they benefit everyone, but they make the ecosystem a better place. For example, if there's an image and it's a bit blurry or it doesn't really capture the place, then someone might have take a photo of his own and submit it for the review of the community. And if the photo is accepted, then they will get rewarded by our rewarding engine. The same goes for correcting erroneous data and, in general, making sure everything's nice and clean and tidy and beautiful, which is what we're going for. So these are the two main benefits, I'd say, we're going to get from leveraging blockchain technology.
But it's important to say our experience in the travel industry for the past 2.5 years is that it's a very tainted industry with a lot of interests and biasness. So you'll have travel companies who finance these magazines who promote specific businesses, and they do that via SEO and remarketing and direct advertisements, so that essentially the traveler is getting recommendations by someone with a commercial interest. So it's very important for us to keep our unbiasedness. That's why Cool Cousin does not have any advertisement and does not place specific businesses before each one. Also, we randomize the view of the cousin each time you enter the app, so that no one cousin will be promoted on top of each other, because we don't want to prioritize one person or one business on top of another one. So it's very important for us to decentralize it, to keep that level of cleanliness and unbiasedness. And I think it's especially true in such a tainted industry that we are trying to disrupt.
Right. I mean, I think with that, I mean, Facebook and Twitter and everyone started out having a non-algorithmic way of listing their content, but eventually down the road, as they saw that there could be a lot more profitability and mainly user interest in changing it to an algorithm-based one.
We believe that if you keep the user's interest by remaining unbiased and by allowing each person to get a tailored experience, then in the long run, we're going to earn much, much more than what would happen if we always put this cafe who paid us this and this.
No, I'm not talking
amount.
about that. I'm talking about that, you're looking at interests, and based on your interests, you can determine, okay, this cousin would be better than that cousin. Because, you mentioned fully randomizing previously, but, with some sort of learning algorithm, you can make it much better. So when you go to New York, or you go to London, or you go to somewhere, you're already paired up with the best person who suits your individual.
So let's differentiate prioritizing cousins to push specific ones, then matching. A matching feature is something that we've been working on for a long time in Cool Cousin, where you insert specific information about yourself, and the system can recommend specific cousins that match your taste and your background. That's totally fine for us, because that doesn't creates a disruption of our unbiasedness. That actually uses our internal data in order to suggest people for you, but it doesn't prioritize one person over the other.
Okay.
It creates a sense of matching.
Okay. No, I mean that there obviously will be better cousins than others. I would think.
I don't agree with that. The idea is that we have each cousin reaches a certain level of authenticity and interest. And from that point, the idea is to create a diverse enough community that each person could find someone they relate to. So for example, a cousin I believe is incredible in San Francisco would bore the hell out of my mother. And my mother would pick a totally different cousin. So the idea is that it's an objective issue. It's a subjective issue, not an objective issue. And that you can't rate a person by a specific algorithm. In a sense, it's about a personality.
Okay. I would think
recommendation.
Yeah, no, I understand the recommendation, and we'll allow for that. And there's a benefit in not prioritizing people over. I guess this brings me into the next question of if you're disconnecting, okay, so let's talk about the business. So there's the foundation, which I guess is the foundation, or some third party, which will be the primary issuer of the tokens. But on the other hand, there'll be the Cool Cousin operating company, which will be you and your team, and you'll be developing the app and software behind it and the blockchain. How does that business model work after you disconnect the token? After you disconnect your essentially just having once you disconnect and you go to the token, where do you generate income from?
So basically, you're asking about revenues, right?
Yes.
All right. So I'll split my answer into two ways: cousins can get revenues, and ways the company can get revenue. Now, a small cut of every transaction is going to be split between the recommendation, the reward engine, and the company. But generally, the service provider will get the lion's share of everything. So cousins can provide with concierge services. For example, when I was in Tokyo, it was crazy hard for me to get reservations to restaurants. And this is because there's a language barrier. Those people cannot, most of them cannot speak English over the phone, and it has been very hard. So this is a task that's very, very hard for a tourist and very, very easy for a local. Also, there are travel agent services. For example, we have a cousin in London, Natasha. She's an art curator. And if I'm into arts, she's very well positioned to suggest me an itinerary for a specific Saturday night where I can check out 4 galleries, maybe have an ice cream in the middle. Just I can describe her like the sense of what I want to have, what I want to experience, and she'll obviously be in the best position to suggest me an itinerary. So that's another paid service. People often ask their cousins where should they go, where should they sleep, like which neighborhood should they get their Airbnb or hotel at. Now, obviously, I have friends who would prefer the more quiet neighborhood. Me personally, I prefer where the nightlife's going on. So each cousin will recommend something completely different. So it's very important that my cousin is compelling to me. Now, once I ask the person, where should I get my Airbnb at? They can also suggest a couple of options for me. And if I can book it on the spot without leaving the app, going to the hotels app or to booking.com or to Airbnb, that's a great service. So these kind of bookings for everything that a traveler might need, an insurance, flight, booking, accommodation. So all these sort of stuff are available there. Also, tipping is a big deal for us. Many people have asked us to tip their cousins. Now, we don't fully have the infrastructure for that, so we couldn't allow that, but the will is out there. People want to do that. So these are the revenue streams that are directed towards our cousins. Now, for us, you had something to say? Sorry.
Yeah, let's before we get on to your revenue streams, just coming back to the concierge services. Now, would that be paid in a token, or would that be used in like so you're on iOS, so you could use Apple Pay for that, where it just charge your credit card or whatever account that you would have?
Yeah, so all the services will be charged in tokens. Now, in some cases, we won't have the choice to pay with tokens, like what you suggested, in like affiliation fees. So in these cases, we guarantee we're going to partner up with some exchanges, receive US dollars, and behind the scenes, exchange them for tokens. Now, this promises that we get no payment in dollars and that we drive demand towards market even when we're receiving fiat.
Right. No, but I was talking about the purchasing through the app. So that you're talking about coming back, receiving funds, and then turning in tokens and bringing it back. I'm speaking about, say I want to purchase a hotel for $500.
Sorry?
So say I wanted to purchase a hotel room for $500 as a concierge service. Would it be done through the tokens, or would there just be the integration of, okay, select this, we already have your phone already has your credit card on file, you're going to need a credit card to book unless you're using Expedia, which allows for Bitcoin transactions, so that would automatically book it, correct?
So we'll provide the technological tools and the credit line. Like behind the scenes, we will act like a travel agency, but the interface for the users will actually be, but will feel like a chat with a trusted local. Now, this trusted local will have the toolbox that we'll provide for them that will allow them to get a spot price in tokens for every transaction.
Right.
And receive it and pay it. And because we have so many transactions within our system, even today, before we added all those new kinds of ways.
How many tokenizable actions we have right now? Like 3,000, I think. That we have the 3,000 daily tokenizable actions right now in terms of what we can do. That's without even scaling even for a tiny bit, or without even putting any effort on it. But I think what you're referring to in terms of Apple Pay, people would still be able to buy tokens within in-app payments to exchange their fiat or credit to use our tokens. But in order to create the incentive engine, in order to sustain our token economy, all payments must be done through our token.
Right. Okay.
And I think it'll also, people are gradually leaving fiat for many reasons, and we don't need to mention it to you or your audience. And using our token, I believe, would create a much more trusted environment. It also fits into the type of culture we're trying to build. The type of, also our users are really young. The average age of our users is about 28, and it's actually declining since we started. And because more and more millennials are beginning to travel and spend more money into their travels. I think what we didn't mention is in terms of our target audience, millennials are using more and more travel agent services for two reasons. In 2011, only 11% of millennials, according to huge research done by a credit company, were using travel agents. In 2016, it's 34%. And the reason is not because the travel agent books their flight. It's because the travel agent provides clarity and curation of an experience. That's why a lot of millennials are now doing that to book their trip to the Bahamas or to book their trip to New Orleans. So they help them plan a more detailed trip. Now, because we're, 80% of our cousins are below 35 and the average age of our users is 28, we're well positioned to educate these users on dropping fiat and using our token. That's why I think it's ideal for us to promote the use of our token. And in that way, in terms of our greater vision and the philosophy of blockchain, we'll be able to be positioned to migrate people who don't have an idea about blockchain and about tokenization of economies to actually do that. So we could be a vehicle for non-crypto investors and non-crypto people users to go to that direction.
Okay. And just to note, I remember from our discussions earlier that the majority of your user base is what, 21 to 28? And
so 80% are below like 32.
Okay. And
the average is 27, 28.
And it's mostly women.
So it's like 60%. So actually 65% of our applications are to become a cousin are women, which we've investigated this for the past year and we came up with really incredible results. It's for many reasons. Women love to be hosts. Women love to use our platform to do like social validation of their coolness, I would say. They love to recommend. But about our user base is a bit more women, like 56, 57%, depends on what location, but also a lot of men as well.
All right.
40% are male.
So where does coming back to the earlier comment we were making, where do the revenues for the company come from?
All right. Itamar, maybe explain a bit about the
city
pop-up communities and the municipality partners?
So in the past year, we've been working with a lot of municipalities in order to bring Cool Cousin into a new territory. What we found out is that medium-sized cities, like let's say Antwerp or Cancun or Tel Aviv or Brussels, so not the big 20, are actually willing to pay Cool Cousin to bring our community into their city because we are a tool that helps travelers discover a new city. So they are willing to pay us, and they've actually pitched it to us and been offering to us to create a city partner program where they pay us in the amounts of 50,000 a year just to reach Cool Cousin into that platform. But I can tell you that we've, for example, collaborated with the Venice Biennale, the Biennale for Arts in Venice, and they helped us find locals in Venice, bring photographers in, pay for the process, and collaborate with different festivals and organizations so that the event goers will have Cool Cousin maps and guidance wherever they travel to. So a huge revenue stream for us is collaborations, not in terms of dictating our content, but just being a great tool for these events. For example, imagine that in the conference that will happen in Vegas in 2 months from now for a crypto event, there will be 15 Cool Cousins there who are in the crypto space. They wouldn't dictate the event. It wouldn't dictate to us or the cousins what to choose, but they will have the ability to offer our services to the event goers. So it's a great way for us to increase our revenue. But you want to tell about the other channels?
All right. So on top of that, we have affiliation fees. plenty of booking and transportation companies are willing to pay, if your app referred users to it, they're willing to pay a small cut of whatever is being charged to the referrer. So this is obviously paid in fiat because these guys don't really support crypto yet. But again, we guarantee that behind the scenes, everything is being transparent and everything's being converted to tokens on the secondary market. Now, another revenue stream is allowing local brands and local brands only to add a promotional layer on top of our map. Now, this layer could be turned on and off. And it has to be a local business of that city, and also it has to be approved by the community, by the local community. So if the cousins in LA don't wish a certain brand to be featured on our app, they have the veto right and they can vote against it. And this is, again, on first sight, it might seem like not the smart move to do because you don't want to limit yourself, but we believe that in the longer run, if we do not respect the locals and if we do not respect the city and the locals' vibes, then we lose our right to exist because this is what we bring, this is what we offer.
And these organizations, by the way, could be like the Los Angeles Surf Club. So you're not talking about like Target stores. You're talking about local communities who strengthen their identity through creating maps of recommendations. So imagine, for example, that you do a map with the Soho House on how to experience Miami. So it's businesses that the Soho House enjoys or supports and that Soho House visitors can enjoy as well. But again, the community could decide not to accept a certain organization or to accept. And there's another thing I think I haven't mentioned, it's a bit off topic, but we recently decided to instruct our cousins not to recommend multinational corporations. So you cannot recommend Starbucks or McDonald's or H&M on Cool Cousin platform. You can only recommend local small to medium-sized businesses that basically what we try to achieve with that are two things. One is obviously to avoid tourist traps and commercial places that anyone could, you know, a Uniqlo store in Fifth Avenue doesn't need to be recommended by Cool Cousin in order to be visited by travelers. But on the other side, the reason we try to do that is because we want local economies to flourish. So I want not the Starbucks around the corner to be recommended, but the little coffee shop that has a hole in the wall that two small baristas manage. And it's very important for us in terms of our community's identity.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool.
One last revenue stream is our API.
Mm-hmm.
So most of our data is, as opposed to Google Places API and Foursquare API, and that they aggregate their content and they group it by location and by general tags. What we do with our data, we cluster it by personality traits of people who likes it and of people who dislike it. So right now our API is completely private and we use it for our own app. But as more data accumulates in our system, we believe that we'll be very good position to be a recommendation API, an API that receives likes and dislikes of a specific person and hands out like recommendations for a destination, for flight apps, for spots, for like municipality apps or maybe conference apps or hotel apps, and all sorts of geographical centered apps that have the interest to show the user of places they might like. So this API, of course, will be paid, and of course, it will be paid with tokens. And this is the last revenue stream, I think, that's worth mentioning here.
Okay. So let's get into the specifics of the token sale. You guys have, do you want to run through the numbers for me and just describe it?
Yeah. So our hard cap is 17,500 Ethereum. We're now in private sale, only for accredited investors worldwide. Our crowd sale will begin around March 20 or so, and the duration will be 2 weeks. For the crowd sale, the minimum is going to be only 1/10 of an Ether in order to accept as many supporters and to distribute the token to many supporters around the world. We've been getting a lot of fantastic feedback in the last conferences we attended. So we just launched the ICO in terms of worldwide noticed just less than 4 days ago. So January 18th is the day we launched our ICO, and we've been getting so much feedback that we're now trying to, reach out to our existing investors, and even, sometimes downsize the scope of investment in order to accept many, many supporters. And that's pretty much it. We try to, I think what differentiates us, there are two things that differentiates us from a lot of ICOs out there. The first thing is that obviously we're a live product. Anyone can download us from the App Store, can see our 60+ versions, could see our hundreds of reviews, could see articles from Mike Butcher's TechCrunch's Mike Butcher, and New York Times, LA Times, The Guardian, National Geographic, USA Today. And we also have a live community and hundreds of thousands of users. But the other thing that differentiates us is that we tried to minimize the scope of our raise in order to make sure that we're not greedy in terms of the amount we're trying to raise. So we're being kind of modest compared to a lot of other ICOs out there, especially the ones that have such a proven track record and a success rate. So people can evaluate us on our white paper and also see our similar web statistics and analytics to show that our traffic has been organic, to see that there's been a constant increase of users and flow. And in that sense, that differentiation is supposed to invoke trust in the token holder, invoke trust in our early investors. And we really want to take this opportunity to make sure that everyone who participates in the ICO can ask us anything they want. So this chance you're giving us right now, this video chat, is a fantastic opportunity to first of all say thank you, Sam, for allowing us to be checked and balanced and investigated. And we love speaking about our product and our vision. And I don't understand why some ICOs are afraid of tough questions. We welcome them and we love them, and we invite people to join our Telegram and ask about our challenges and ask about how we're planning to deal with a lot of these things. And I must say, we don't have answers to every questions. We tried to plan this, thoroughly for 4 months with advisors in our team and our co-founders. But obviously, a lot of these issues are going to be tested and checked in real life, and they're going to be iterated. And some of these ideas that we have right now will succeed, and some wouldn't. But after 2.5 years of working on Cool Cousin, I can tell you this: if you are resilient enough, you will succeed. And if you are open to new ideas and you experiment, you will succeed. And that's, I think, the key for any successful entrepreneur in that sense. Being very focused, but also open to new ideas and not being fixated on one solution. I think it took us a long time, but we finally are in love with the problem we're trying to solve, not with the solution we originally thought of. So that keeps us, I think, on point.
Cool. I want to pick on something that you guys said earlier. You guys have been persevering as well too, but you built out quite a large team already. You have 25, correct?
Yeah, around the world, yeah.
Yeah, and that's 17,500 ETH. It could grow, it could go down. I mean, it's say, but at today's rates, it would help you carry on for what, 3 years, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Around that time.
Yes, that's quite lean for a company your size.
We're an extremely lean startup. Going for 2 years. $2 million. That's a large. Sorry.
On the original $2 million that you guys raised in your seed round.
Yeah, and this kept us going for more than 2 years. With a large team of believers that were willing to compromise on many of the perks startup companies and high-tech companies provide because they believe in the idea and they believe in the team and they want to be a part of it. So we're not going to buy a yacht the day after the ICO. We're going to work twice as hard, and we're going to find the most compatible team members and collaborations and work very, very hard.
Yeah.
Raising $50 million is insincere. It will lead to creating disappointments from all over the place. And you see it with most ICOs that manage to raise ridiculous sums of money just to go into a huge dip and just let everyone down.
Yeah. It's also very important to be prudent about other people's money. We flew here about Coach, and Gil and I are staying at the same hotel room, and it's not about being modest. It's about being prudent with other people's money. We take our investor money extremely serious, and we want to make sure that they trust us and that in the long run, we'll be fine financially. But while we're building the company and until it's completely profitable, we consider every dollar and every cent as if it's not ours, and we consider it. We sometimes when we buy a $100 monthly SaaS service, we are a bit hesitant about whether to take it or not. And that, I think, brought us to the situation where we raised $2 million. We're 2 years running, and we're still being able to function financially safe and being oversighted by our accounting and oversighted by our lawyers. So we're actually thinking that eventually the 17,500 Ethereum that we're raising will last probably even more than 3 years. And it'll enable us to significantly grow our company and significantly grow our team and significantly grow our user base and community.
So let's talk about that.
Keep in mind.
So let's talk about the roadmap. You're raising for the next few years. What do you guys have planned for the next 3-6 years?
So in the shorter run, we'll have to make the adjustments, the adjustment required to start incorporating crypto into our app, like have our in-app wallet in store and start providing with the services that we promised to deliver. So this includes pairing up with exchanges and pairing up with OTAs and booking agencies and Airbnb and all those companies that we need to be paired up with in order to deliver on our promises. Now, obviously, we'll launch our wallet first. We'll establish the board of representatives, which is like the most trusted members of our community. We're going to launch our pop-up communities product, which is like a promotional product we discussed earlier. An Android version is coming during 2018, sorry.
This year, we're releasing the Android version full-time. Next year, we're going to have the API launch, if I'm not mistaken. Next year, we're also going to have the Cool Cousin 4.0, which is going to be a totally redux version of the app with a more complex wallet, with more complex interactions. And the idea is that by 2020, we'll be able to facilitate tens of millions of interactions a day. In terms of our capability to scale up, in terms of the millions of users that we will have. Right now, in our current model, in our bootstrapping behavior, we've been able to achieve 150,000 monthly active travelers every month. And this has been done from a tiny office in Tel Aviv. So with no PR firm, no marketing firm, we've done everything in-house. We haven't begged for attention or tried to do all these very complex or weird growth hacks. We've done it because we've been able to succeed because people connect to our vision, they connect to our idea, and they love using the product. And if you have that, that's a great way to reach mass adoption. So that's kind of, I think, the way that we're going to head out in the next 3-4 years, I believe.
That all sounds great, guys. I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the token sale goes in March, and looking for how it develops. I think we've gone on quite a bit, so I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me, and we will...
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for having us.
It's been an incredible chat, and it's really great having people try to understand our vision and see how it breaks down into reality.
Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.